You don't choose it. You are given it at a time when you cannot express a choice. So what they do is they give you this name, and that becomes your legal personality. Now, as you go through life, you will gain titles, Mr., Dr., Lord, whatever. Most of us stay just Mr. or Mrs. or Miss or whatever. That's your legal status. Now, when they ask you, if you go for credit, they'll say subject to status. So subject, if you look at the word subject is something that's under the rule of something else.
Okay.
And then if you look at status, it's the legal character or condition of a person or a thing. So what they're doing is they're working on the status, so it's the legal status. But you've had this thing attached to you that's just simply a piece of paper. So what they're actually acting against is this piece of paper. But because this piece of paper can't walk into a court of law, or it can't pick up a pen and sign something, then it needs a human being to represent it.
Yeah, represent. There you go.
That's, represent.
Yes.
So you're representing a piece of paper. Now, I said recently to someone, well, that's fine. They said, well, I've got to go to court. I said, who are they talking to? I said, they're talking to the name that was created, so they're actually talking to the piece of paper. So why don't you send them the piece of paper and say, crack on? Because you're not talking to the human being, you're talking to a piece of paper. And the piece of paper can't pick up a pen, it can't go to court on its own, so it needs a human being there to represent it. What they're doing is duping people into believing they are this piece of paper, but they're not. At the end of the day, in reality, it's just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And that's what the person is. The point is, the person's attached to the ego, because that's where the status comes in. So what you've got is, you've got Mr., Mrs., all the different titles. So the titles are your legal status. Yeah? So you've got a legal status, you've got a legal personality, and then you have a legal status. That is your Mr. So what they're doing is, they've used the status to work on the ego, because when you devise a system out of greed, which is basically how the ego works, and a system out of control, which is also from the ego, because the ego wants to control everything, then you've got the perfect system. Because all you do is play on it, and when you play on the ego, then as long as you maintain it's always on the ego, people will do exactly what you ask them to do, because they want to gain better status. So simple, such a simple system. But it's also simple to break it down. Because once you realise that everything in their world is just a piece of paper, and you suddenly say, someone said to me recently about our money, okay? They said to me about money. Let's just take that phone off of there. They said to me about money. And I says, okay. I says, well, what tangible commodity is behind our currency? And in the UK, it's meant to be gold, or it was sterling silver at one time. That's why it's called pound sterling. And the pound is not a currency, it's a weight. So I said, well, if the tax office are asking me for money, they're asking me for this commodity they call money, which is this piece of paper, then I'm simply going to ask the tax office, can you tell me what tangible commodity is behind this piece of paper? When you tell me what it is, I'll go to the Bank of England, exchange my worthless notes for this commodity, and I'll give you that commodity. Because at the end of the day, all I'm going to be doing is giving you something that is not real. It's a piece of paper. So you want something real from me. So anyway, they said they couldn't understand where I was coming from. So I said, well, look, our pound notes say I promise to pay the bearer on demand, if it's a £20 note, £20. So I said to him, why don't you just write underneath the pounds of what with a question mark and send it out?
Right.
Because it's pounds of what? I'm asking them, what do you want pounds of?
Yeah.
Because, the pounds is not a currency. It's a weight. It's a weight. It's nothing to do with any form of currency. It is simply a weight. As you probably understand, it relates to the weight of gold or sterling silver. It was £20 of sterling silver. Yeah. All that was basically is a credit note, an IOU. That's all it basically is.
It's the same thing with the American dollar. It's a note. It's a debt. Is it the same in the UK?
But see, the thing is, we've been told that the world's got this, the world's got debt, and it's got all this, right? And yeah, I know I've listened to commercial redemption people. Oh, the country's in bankruptcy, blah, blah, blah,
Right,
blah, blah. Yeah, that's great. But I just want to ask a question. If you've got the power to print money, why would there ever be debt?
Yeah, of course.
See, this is what I mean. It is a complete illusion. It's an absolute... Illusions work on three parts. They work on the pledge, the turn, and the prestige.
And it's working. The structure is still in place because all the people are putting their own trust into the system. So, if a news report comes out which says, okay, we're going bankrupt, everyone is going to act as if we are going bankrupt. And again, an illusion is simply deepening that situation. So it's really weird here what's going on, really.
It's just a con. It's a con. See, how I look at the world is this, right? Human beings live as a community, naturally, okay? They just live as a community. So I take everybody in the world as being a community of human beings. Then they create something called a society. Now, society is basically the socially dominant members of a community. So what we've got worldwide is something very simple. We have the socially dominant members of our community who want to maintain their social dominance because they actually believe that they are better than anybody else. Mm-hmm. And that all goes back to the status. And it all goes back to the person, the ego. It's all the same. It never changes. It doesn't matter what part of this you look at. You look at it. President Obama is a man. But his status is he is president of the United States.
Yeah.
But he's a man. He's no better than anybody else. He's no less than anybody else. But because he has this title, he now believes himself to be a powerful man. Mm. And that's their system. That's their world. And all the bad happens in the world because people believe they have the power to do it, because they believe they're this person and they have the right to remove human life. Well, what they're actually doing is they're if you want it better, I can't really put it any better, but they're playing God.
Yeah, of course.
You can't dictate to what cannot be dictated to. You can't do that. I don't call what's above us God. I don't actually call it anything because I've never been given anything that's not come from a man's mouth or man's words to describe whatever it is.
Yeah.
I can't describe it. So I know there's something there. And I don't know what it is, and I don't ask. And do you know what? I don't want to know. And that's the point. I don't want to know. And that's when I was talking about thinking. I don't think. I literally shut down the thinking, because when you shut down the thinking process, you suddenly realise that deny the ego control of you. And it's about control, because everything that you put out is literal. So if you put out, I want to control, then you will be controlled. Now, I've suddenly realised that if I put out, I do not want control, then I won't be controlled. And that's actually happening. I'm actually seeing this. I know this sounds, but it's literal. If I love, I'll be loved. If I trust, I'll be trusted. And I'll gain trust.
It's the idea of reflection here, or the idea that what you put out, absolutely, you get back, and again, what is interesting here is that you have applied this also to the larger body, shall we call it, of either the community then or the society. If we think of that as a body, as a human body, then the law system and the orders, the structures and the statutes and whatever you have represents the ego process of that body, right?
Absolutely. See, another thing as well, right, is I ask this question to a lot of people, and I say, what gave one element of our community the authority or the right to turn around and say, we own everything, we're going to charge you for the pleasure? I'm
really interested in that question, and the question is how far back it goes, of course, and it's very difficult to find out, of course, who actually started this up.
It goes as far back as the creation of money. That's the only way, the only place I can possibly see, because the creation of money was done for one reason, to enslave people, because we honestly believe that we can't live without it, and they've designed a world where it is nearly impossible to live without it.
And also, I think it actually goes back even further, because I think the money also represents just the means of exchange for something. Of course, we can have a consequence of that is that we get a false value system, meaning that something, for instance, if there's scarcity of something, they can prop up the value of something just because a few want it more, etc. There's a whole lot of problems that comes along with it. But money, for me at least, represent a system of agreement for easy transaction. I don't know about you, John.
I don't know. I just kind of, I've done it. A lot of the building trade exists. This is what the beauty of the building trade in the United Kingdom. When I was working in the building trade, obviously I worked alongside a lot of trades. And a lot of these trades, if I had a plumber mate, and a mate, he might say to me, I need a few doors hanging. I say, yeah, I could do with a bit of work in my bathroom. And it's not for naught. We didn't need money. What do we need money for? He does my bathroom and I sort his doors out. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. The transaction.
And the value is not what the monetary value of the job. It's how much you need that job doing. So in retrospect, how can I say, to fit a bathroom, I don't know, £1,000. To hang a couple of doors, 3-4 doors, I don't know, £200-300. But the point of it is, more than anything, is the fact that he needs that job doing and he values that. So value is only what we give something. If someone says to me, this bar of gold's worth 600 quid, and I turn around and say, well, it's worth £1. And they say, well, how do you work that out? I said, because to you, that is precious metal. To me, it's just a piece of metal.
Yeah.
What gives it value? You're only giving it value because you're saying it's precious. I'm saying I'm giving it the value of saying, well, it's just a piece of metal. It's like a diamond. A diamond to me is just a pretty stone. So it's not, okay, well, it's got workable commodities. You can put it on. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But why does that still give it value?
Yeah.
Value is only what I attribute to something, not what someone else attributes to it. And you can see this in the consumer world, because people bring out these things in the consumer world, and let's say, for argument's sake, a flat screen TV it comes out and it's £3,000, whatever, okay? But when the consumer, you always get an element of society especially will buy it. But then when they hit the real consumers, they have to bring the price down so dramatically because no one will buy it until it's at a reasonable price. No one will buy it. So basically it's being controlled. And it's like I say to people about this country, we're enslaved by money. We're enslaved by a system that makes us believe money's valuable because it's constantly being taken away from us. And the trouble is people believe something to be valuable when it's constantly removed from you. i.e. money. So because we get stiffed with so many fines over in the UK, it's just unbelievable. And these fixed penalty notices and all this stuff that they're doing to us is just, and they're using a system of duping people to rake in this revenue. Now, majority of people in the system believe that money is real, it's valuable, so they're frightened of losing it. So they basically keep fining us and taking this money off. It increases people's false reality that this stuff is valuable. So they're basically maintaining the system by taking it away from you. And this is what they do with your rights. They do exactly the same. It's like someone says to me about liberties, and I said, we're losing our liberty. I said, well, hold on. Look at what you're saying. Liberty is not freedom. Liberty is something that's granted. It comes from the old system where a ship pulled into port and the sailor would apply for liberty to leave the ship to pass port under certain rules and conditions. And what do you need when you want to leave your country?
That's interesting. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And and again, I'm drawn back to that idea that it also is that the system is dead, motionless in a way. You talked about this before, and the idea of, for instance, incorporating something that you're making it into a body in the artificial world that they've set up. We can think of the legal term of filing a motion, for instance. It's like it's a dead system, right? So it must be kept alive by our agreements and what we do with the paperwork. Isn't that right?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's like, but if when I was saying about Admiralty, I mean, if you look at everything in our world and what we use, it's like you look at the word bank and